So deloading every 4 weeks is an absolute waste of time. And I would argue that even having like regularly pre-planned deloads is a waste of your time. Let me guess, you're probably following an intermediate program like 531 or 5 by 5 and they have you doing a deload week every 4 weeks or maybe 5 weeks or somewhere around there. During the deload week, you feel lazy, you feel weak, the training sessions actually feel heavier than a normal training week. And then you come back to training and you feel really detrained, everything feels sloppy, and you feel like the momentum's gone. And how do I know that? Because I ran those training programs for years. I remember when I was in university and I ran 531 and it had me deload every fourth week. During the deload, I felt so shit. Honestly, I felt depressed. Like I would go and do one training session and I was like, what's the point? This feels so heavy. It's not getting me any stronger anyway. And I ended up just taking the week off because I was like, that's probably a better way to get rid of the fatigue anyway, right? Now, if you want a better program that doesn't have you deload every 4 weeks, click the link in the description. There's 3, 4, and 5 day options for you. No deloads at all. So why are regular deloads a waste of time? Let me give you a few reasons. So first and foremost, for most people, life just acts as a deload. Something comes up, you get forced into a few days off, or you take a week off here and there. Like I'm probably willing to bet that most of you have had a few days off this year, maybe even a week off already. Or life stress just gets so heavy that you're forced into taking a few lighter sessions anyway. You have to rush in and out of the gym more quickly. You have to drop the weights a little bit. And those are basically deloads. You don't need to pre-plan in like a full week of really light training or a week off. Another reason why regularly planned deloads aren't a great idea is because they're done in such a like arbitrary time frame. Like why are we deloading every fourth week? Why not every 5 weeks or 6 weeks or 7 weeks? Like it's such a just random number. Not to mention deloads just completely suck the fun out of training. Like going into the gym, lifting super easy or cutting the volume right down, it just feels terrible. Like you feel really flat and deflated, you lose that pump. Everything feels super heavy on your back, it kills momentum, and then when you get back to regular training, it feels like you just took ages off. And basically I used to feel like I just did a training block, got a bit stronger, took the deload, and I just fell off again. And I was basically just going in this loop of just gain a bit of strength, deload, gain a bit of strength, deload, and it was really demotivating. So what's a better solution then compared to these traditional deloads? Now, if you've been watching my videos, you've probably seen that I recommend setting yourself training blocks of like 4 to 6 weeks or somewhere thereabouts, and we start the blocks light and we end them heavy. So you might do on week 1, your top set intensity might be RPE 5. Week 2, it might be RPE 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on. And then we repeat that cycle. Now, for those of you who have paid attention, you'll realize that starting those blocks light naturally serves as a deload. You do the heavy work at the end, and then you take a few steps back and you start over starting light at lower intensities like RPE 5s and 6. And that just serves as a deload naturally. It strips some weight off the bar, it reduces fatigue because, again, the load on the bar is lighter, you're doing easier training. And because of that, you don't need to do a whole like pre-planned week of deloading. You just have it built into the program. It's this natural progression of starting light and ending heavy, like this kind of step model. And it means that you don't have to waste a bunch of training time and kill your momentum. So the way I set training blocks up is I will aim to find my lifters time to peak. Now this concept, TTP, was categorized by like Mike Tuchscherer, who's a great powerlifting coach. I learned this from him, so I'm not taking credit at all for this idea. But basically what we do is I write to my clients 1 week of training, and you can do this yourself and I'll explain how to do it afterwards, but you write 1 week of training, which is called a microcycle, and we then run that week of training over and over. So week 1, week 2, week 3, this is what I'm telling you when I say training blocks of like 4 to 6 weeks. Basically, we want to find the amount of weeks or the amount of exposures it takes to find a peak in performance. So basically, to kind of illustrate that, if we said that you had a period of training where you did week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, and you were able to add weight to the bar every single week but then in week 6 you drop off, week 7 you drop off again, that would tell me that your time to peak is probably 5 weeks. We're basically looking for a peak followed by 2 drop-offs, okay? So for some of you, that might be 3 weeks, it might be 4, it might be 5. For myself, it's 5 weeks. So basically in my blocks, I'm able to add weight to my top sets every single week until week 5. Week 5 is my best performance, my heaviest week. Then week 6, I drop off. Week 7, I drop off again. Fatigue gets too high and I can't continue maintaining the same performance or adding more weight to the bar. So this would tell us that time to peak would be 5 weeks. We then know that your training blocks need to be 5 weeks in length, starting light, ending heavy with week 5 being the heaviest week. Using this approach, you can set yourself 5-week blocks that just piece together, block after block, and you don't need to have scheduled deloads because weeks 1, week 2 are going to serve as deloads anyway. They're going to reduce fatigue because you're stripping weight off the bar. So to kind of allow you to visualize that a little bit, let's say I do a 5-week block on my squat. Let's say week 1, I'm doing 180 kilos. Week 2, 190, then 200, 210, 220, and I end on week 5 at 220 kilos. Then in the next block, maybe I start a little bit heavier, so like 185 kilos, 195, 205, and so on. And you can see how dropping from 220 down to 185 in the next block, that's a big decrease in load on the bar, and therefore we're going to reduce fatigue without needing a deload. Can you see how that kind of works a lot better because I don't waste weeks deloading and, so we can just string together multiple blocks. Now, if you do happen to feel really, really fatigued between those blocks, we can slot in a deload or what I call a week 0. This is a term commonly used in like powerlifting. And basically what it means is we would slot in like kind of a filler week before the second block. So we do that first 5-week block. And then before we start block 2, we just slot in basically 1 week of training. And that week is essentially like a structured deload. I would only use these if you're feeling like really beat up, you feel really tired and stuff like that. Basically, this week of training will be exactly the same as the weeks you just used in that 5-week block, your regular microcycle, but you just strip it back a little bit. So if usually you're doing like 5 back off sets on your squat, you might do 2 or 3 on the week 0, and you just scale everything back a little bit. So the intensity would drop down, the volume would drop down. You might even just cut the top sets out for 1 week just to kind of reduce fatigue and kind of get a bit of that weight off the bar, okay? So that's the only time I would really like pre-plan deloads. Now, how would I recommend then that you implement this deload strategy into your own programming? So step number 1, I would determine your time to peak. So write yourself 1 week of training and then keep running that until you see a peak in performance followed by 2 down weeks, okay? So that means you are going to have to run the block past your time to peak to kind of identify when that is, okay? Once you know your time to peak, and you've written yourself 1 week of training. And by the way, if you want me to write the week of training for you or you want one to follow, click the link in the description and there's some options there for you. You basically, like I said, run it until a peak and then 2 downtrends. Then you've identified your block length. If we know your block length is 5 weeks, simply run blocks of 5 weeks. The first intro weeks, like week 1 and week 2, will naturally serve as a deload. If you get to a point where you're super fatigued and you feel like, okay, I actually need like a deload, slot one in between the 2 blocks. It's essentially like a week 0 with reduced workloads. And it's as simple as that. You don't need to be spending entire weeks all the time pre-planned dedicated to deloading. Like, not to mention, no one wants to do that shit. Deloads are so boring. If you're a competitive athlete who's doing this for your job, you're making money off it, maybe we need to think about like pre-planning in deloads every now and then. But for the average guys, me and you watching this video, we don't need to pre-plan deloads in. Life is going to act as a deload. And if we just structure our blocks intelligently, we can save ourselves the time of doing it. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you would like a clear plan to follow, training programs laid out that don't have these boring deloads, click the top link in the description. There are 3, 4, and 5-day programs there for you. If you need more help, I've got another video on how to set up your training program. You can click here to watch it. And any questions, comments, things like that, post them in the comment section down below. And until then, I will catch you in the next one.